The rain hadn't let up all evening, turning the city streets into slick ribbons of light. Liam cursed under his breath as he checked the clock on his dashboard. 11:48 p.m. He'd promised his best friend, Ryan, he'd be there for the big birthday blowout. But between the last-minute work emergency and a traffic jam caused by a minor accident, the night had slipped through his fingers. By now, Ryan's party would be dying down, the music a dull thump in the distance, drinks half-finished, guests slouched into corners. But Liam hated the idea of not showing up at all. He'd bought a gift, a signed vinyl of Ryan's favorite band, and it sat on the passenger seat, wrapped in silver paper that was starting to wrinkle from being tossed around. When he finally pulled up to Ryan's place, the front yard was littered with red cups and the occasional abandoned balloon, swaying in the wind. He expected to hear laughter, music, maybe see people smoking out front. But the house was still. The only light came from a warm glow behind the living room curtains. Liam hesitated before knocking. His hair was damp from the dash across the lawn, his black sweater clinging slightly to his shoulders. He'd rehearsed what to say. "Sorry I'm late, work ran over, I couldn't miss wishing you happy birthday." The door swung open before he could even finish his first knock. It wasn't Ryan. A man stood there, taller, older, with a broad frame and the kind of posture that made you aware of your own. His shirt was unbuttoned halfway, revealing a glimpse of a firm chest, the faint scent of cologne drifting out into the cool night. His dark hair was streaked with silver at the temples, and his eyes, though not hostile, carried the weight of someone who noticed everything. "You're late," the man said, but there was a teasing edge in his voice. Liam blinked. Yeah. Is Ryan here?" The man leaned against the doorframe, one hand braced high above him. "After party. He went out with the others about an hour ago. You missed him." "Oh." Liam glanced at the wrapped record in his hands, suddenly feeling ridiculous. "I just wanted to drop this off." The man's gaze lingered on him for a beat too long. "I'm Daniel," he said finally. "Ryan's dad." Liam had met him once before, in passing, a handshake at a barbecue, a polite smile. But seeing him now, in the dim doorway with rainwater catching on his collarbone, felt different. Daniel's eyes flicked to the gift. "Well, since you went through all the trouble, you could just leave it." Or, a pause, his mouth curling into something that wasn't quite a smile. "You could come in. Have a drink. Celebrate with me instead." Liam opened his mouth to politely decline, but Daniel had already stepped aside, leaving the door wide open. The invitation wasn't pushy. It was casual, like it didn't matter to him whether Liam accepted or not, which somehow made it harder to refuse. Inside, the house was quieter than Liam had ever known it. A few stray streamers hung limp from the ceiling. Empty glasses and half-melted ice sat on the coffee table. Daniel walked ahead of him into the living room, barefoot, moving with an ease that suggested he didn't much care about the mess. "Whiskey? Beer?" Daniel asked over his shoulder. Whiskey's fine," Liam said, setting the gift on the couch. Daniel poured 2 fingers into a heavy glass and handed it to him. Their hands brushed, a simple, unremarkable thing, but Liam felt the warmth of it all the way to his elbow. "So," Daniel said, settling into the armchair across from him, "why'd you miss the party?" Liam sipped, the whiskey burning down his throat. "Work. I tried to make it, but," he shrugged. Daniel studied him. "Ryan's been talking about you. Says you're the only one who's kept him out of trouble over the years." Liam chuckled. "That's debatable." They talked in easy fragments. About music, about Ryan's terrible taste in beer, about the rain pounding the windows. But every now and then, Daniel's gaze would linger a fraction too long, like he was measuring something. When Liam leaned forward to set his glass down, Daniel's eyes dipped briefly, not at his face, but lower, as though the movement itself had caught him off guard. "You're quieter than I remember," Daniel said finally. "Maybe I'm just taking it in." Daniel smirked faintly. "Good. Not everyone knows how to sit in a moment." The words hung there, heavy and oddly intimate. Liam felt a heat in his chest that wasn't just from the whiskey. The clock on the wall ticked past midnight. Liam knew he should probably go. Ryan would find out he'd missed everything, and being alone here with Daniel felt complicated. But Daniel rose from his chair, walking toward the kitchen, and tossed a glance over his shoulder. One more drink. It wasn't really a question. Liam hesitated, his fingers curling loosely around the glass. The rain outside sounded louder now, like it had closed them off from the rest of the world. And for reasons he couldn't quite explain, he didn't get up to leave. Daniel returned from the kitchen with a fresh pour for both of them, the amber liquid catching the lamplight like molten gold. He handed Liam his glass, fingers brushing deliberately this time, not by accident. "Still raining," Daniel said, glancing at the window. "Looks like you're stuck here for a while." It was an offhand remark, but Liam felt the weight behind it. Stuck here sounded less like a problem and more like an arrangement. Daniel sat again, but this time not across from him. He chose the far end of the couch, close enough that Liam could feel the slight give of the cushions when he leaned back. The air between them felt warmer, the kind of warmth that had nothing to do with central heating. "You know," Daniel began, tilting his glass lazily in his hand, "Ryan never mentioned you had such self-control." Liam frowned slightly. "Self-control?" Daniel smirked. "Most people wouldn't have shown up this late. They'd just text some excuse and call it a night." "Guess I'm not most people," Liam said, sipping. Clearly. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was deliberate. Daniel was watching him without hiding it now, eyes moving in small, measured arcs, over Liam's shoulders, down to his hands, back up again. Liam shifted in his seat, not to move away but to face him more directly. "So, what about you? Didn't expect you to still be up." Daniel's laugh was low, almost private. "When the house is full of noise, you get used to staying awake after everyone leaves. That's when it's quiet enough to think." He paused, taking a sip. "And sometimes you find better company when the crowd's gone." The remark landed between them like a stone in water, no splash, just ripples spreading outward. Daniel reached for the bottle on the table and poured another finger into Liam's glass, even though it was still half full. The movement brought him closer, his knee brushing Liam's. He didn't move it away. Neither did Liam. "You seem tense," Daniel observed, his voice almost a murmur. Liam huffed out a laugh. "Maybe I am." Daniel's gaze didn't waver. "Relax. You're allowed to." It wasn't an order, but it felt like one, a gentle nudge disguised as casual conversation. Liam took another slow sip, letting the heat of the drink spread through him, loosening something inside. The sound of rain filled the brief lull in their conversation. Daniel leaned back, his arm draped along the top of the couch, his fingers idly tapping against the cushion just inches from Liam's shoulder. "You and Ryan have been friends how long?" Daniel asked. "Since freshman year. We've seen each other through a lot." Daniel nodded, eyes narrowing slightly. "Loyalty's rare. But loyalty to one person doesn't mean shutting everyone else out." Liam's pulse kicked a little faster. "Is that your philosophy?" "Not a philosophy. Just experience." There was an ease in the way Daniel spoke, but also a deliberate layering, every comment doubling as something else, an invitation wrapped in a harmless statement. Liam glanced toward the gift still sitting on the couch. "Ryan's going to think I'm weird for dropping by at midnight." Daniel smiled faintly. "He's not here. I am. And I don't think you're weird." The words sat heavy in the air, weighted with intent. Daniel shifted again, closing the small gap between them. He didn't touch Liam outright, but his presence filled the space like a tide creeping higher on the shore. The scent of his cologne mixed with the faint trace of whiskey on his breath. Liam found himself leaning an inch closer without realizing it. "Careful," Daniel murmured. "Why?" Daniel's gaze dropped briefly to Liam's lips before returning to his eyes. "Because I'm not great at pretending I don't want something." The honesty in that line made Liam's chest tighten. This was no longer ambiguous, no longer something he could pretend he'd imagined. I should probably go, Liam said, though his voice lacked conviction. You could, Daniel agreed, his tone easy. Or you could stay a little longer. Just to see where the night goes. The challenge in that suggestion was subtle, but it was there. Liam felt the pull, the danger of what was unfolding and the undeniable temptation running through it. Daniel reached past him, setting his own glass down on the table. His arm brushed Liam's in the process, warm and solid. When he leaned back, he stayed close enough that Liam could feel the faint stir of his breath against his cheek. You're a good listener, Daniel said quietly. I wasn't aware I was doing much listening. That's the point. You don't have to work at it. You're just present. People underestimate how attractive that is. The remark landed deep. Liam tried to swallow it down, but the truth was, his body had already answered for him. The tension in his shoulders had eased, and he was leaning in without conscious thought. Daniel noticed. He didn't push further, but his hand shifted just enough to rest lightly on the back of the couch, fingers close enough to brush Liam's shoulder if either of them moved a fraction more. The rain outside had softened, the wind dying down, but the quiet inside had grown sharper, more intimate. Liam knew if he stayed, something was going to happen. The only question was whether he wanted to stop it. Daniel's eyes caught his again, and for a long moment neither of them spoke. Then, softly, Daniel said, "One more drink." Liam didn't answer right away. His silence was answer enough. The whiskey was gone. The rain had eased into a slow drizzle, tapping lightly against the windows. The house felt impossibly quiet, as if the rest of the world had gone to sleep and left the two of them suspended in a space where time didn't matter. Daniel poured the last splash from the bottle into Liam's glass. "Finish that," he said, his voice low, almost coaxing. Liam obeyed without thinking. The warmth slid down his throat, blooming in his chest. He set the glass aside, but didn't lean back. His body felt wired, restless, aware of every small movement Daniel made. Daniel shifted on the couch, turning toward him fully. "You're still tense," he said, studying Liam's posture. Liam forced a small laugh. "Or maybe I'm just overthinking." "Then stop." It wasn't a request. Daniel's hand came to rest on the back of the couch again, but this time, his fingers grazed Liam's shoulder. The contact was light, testing. Liam didn't move away. "You know," Daniel said, his tone almost conversational, "Ryan trusts you more than anyone. He thinks you'd never cross certain lines." The statement wasn't just a fact, it was a deliberate push. Liam felt the weight of it like a hand on his chest. "I wouldn't," Liam said, though the words felt less like truth and more like a lifeline he was trying to cling to. Daniel's gaze was steady, unwavering. "Sometimes, the lines aren't where we think they are." He closed the space between them by an inch and then another. The scent of his cologne mixed with the faint, smoky burn of the whiskey on his breath. Liam's pulse quickened. "Daniel." "Liam," Daniel interrupted, his voice firm but quiet, "if you don't want this, you should say so now." It was an out, clear, direct, but Liam didn't take it. Daniel's hand slid from the back of the couch to Liam's jaw, thumb brushing the edge of his stubble. The touch was slow, deliberate, intimate in a way that felt more dangerous than anything else they'd shared. "You're making a mistake," Liam murmured, but it came out softer than he intended. Daniel's mouth curved, not in amusement but in recognition. "Maybe. But I don't regret it." The air between them tightened. Liam felt the world narrowing to just the sound of their breathing, the subtle weight of Daniel's touch, the way his own body leaned forward before his mind could catch up. Daniel's other hand found the side of Liam's neck, fingers warm, steady. For a long moment they just looked at each other, neither blinking, neither breaking the fragile space that still kept them apart. Then Daniel closed it. The contact was slow, unhurried, but loaded with everything they hadn't said. Liam felt his resolve crumble in the space of a heartbeat. His hands found Daniel's shoulder, not to push him away, but to pull him closer. It wasn't frantic, it was measured, as if both of them knew exactly how far they were stepping over that invisible line and wanted to feel every inch of it. When Daniel finally pulled back, it was only far enough to speak. "Tell me to stop and I will." Liam's breath caught. He didn't. Daniel's hand trailed down Liam's arm, fingers brushing over his wrist, then curling lightly around it. The gesture was subtle but anchoring, as though he was claiming something without saying it aloud. "You don't have to explain yourself," Daniel said. "Not to me. Not tonight." Liam swallowed hard, acutely aware that explanations would come later, to himself, if to no one else. Daniel leaned in again, slower this time, his lips brushing the edge of Liam's jaw before finding the spot just beneath his ear. Liam's hand tightened against Daniel's shoulder involuntarily. The sound of the rain outside seemed to fade entirely, replaced by the quiet thrum of his own heartbeat. It was only when Daniel pulled away a second time, his eyes locking with Liam's, that the reality of what they'd done hit him, not in regret, but in the weight of what it meant. "You know this changes everything," Daniel said, not as a warning, but as a certainty. Liam nodded, unable to form words. For a moment they just sat there, the space between them charged and unsteady. Then Daniel stood, offering his hand. "Come on." Liam hesitated, staring at it. He knew that taking it meant stepping fully into whatever came next, that there'd be no turning back. He took it anyway. Sunlight crept through the half-closed blinds, slicing the living room into thin bars of gold. Liam's eyes opened slowly, his head heavy but clear enough to remember every detail of the night before. He was lying on the couch, a blanket draped loosely over him. His sweater was folded neatly on the coffee table beside the empty whiskey glasses. The air smelled faintly of coffee and something warm from the kitchen. Daniel was there, not in front of him, but in the periphery, a quiet silhouette moving around the stove. Barefoot, calm, as though nothing in the world had shifted overnight. Liam sat up, rubbing a hand over his face. His pulse kicked when flashes of the night replayed, Daniel's hand at his jaw, the weight of his touch, the heat of breath between them before the line finally broke. "You're awake," Daniel said, glancing over his shoulder. His voice was casual, but there was a small tug of something else in it, amusement, maybe, or quiet satisfaction. "Yeah," Liam muttered, pulling the blanket tighter around his shoulders. "I should probably get going before." "Before what?" Daniel turned off the stove, setting a plate of eggs and toast on the counter. "Ryan's not coming back until this afternoon." That should have been a relief. It wasn't. Liam stood, crossing to the counter, but he didn't sit. The distance between them now felt different, not charged with anticipation, but weighted by the thing they'd already done. Daniel poured coffee into 2 mugs and slid one toward him. "Eat something before you head out." Liam wrapped his hands around the mug, the steam curling into his face. "About last night." Daniel cut him off with a small shake of his head. "You don't have to explain yourself. Not to me." "That's not the point," Liam said quietly. Ryan doesn't know. And he won't." Daniel's tone was steady, but there was a hint of steel under it. "Unless you tell him." The implication hung in the air, heavy. Liam sipped the coffee, avoiding Daniel's eyes. "This can't happen again." Daniel's mouth curved, not quite a smile. "That's what people always say the morning after." "I mean it. I don't doubt that you do. But meaning something and living it are 2 different things." Liam hated how calm Daniel was, how unfazed. He hated even more that part of him wanted to stay, to see what Daniel would say if he didn't leave right away. The sound of a phone vibrating broke the silence. Liam pulled his from his pocket, a text from Ryan. "Ryan, dude, sorry I missed you last night. We need to catch up this week." Liam's stomach twisted. He typed back something vague and harmless, then set the phone down. Daniel watched him. "You're not the first person to get caught between loyalty and something else." "This isn't something else," Liam said sharply. Daniel's gaze didn't waver. "No? Felt like it last night." The truth in that made Liam's chest tighten. He picked up the mug again just to have something to hold. "You're dangerous," Liam said finally. Daniel leaned on the counter, his eyes locked on him. "Only if you let me be." The room went quiet again. Outside, the drizzle had stopped completely, leaving the world washed clean in pale sunlight. Liam set the coffee down. "I should go." Daniel didn't move to stop him. But as Liam grabbed his sweater and reached for the door, his phone buzzed again. It wasn't Ryan this time. It was Daniel. "Daniel, next time, don't wait for a missed party." Liam froze in the doorway, the words glowing on the screen like they were meant to be read twice. He didn't turn around, but he felt the weight of Daniel's eyes on his back. He stepped outside into the cool morning, the door clicking shut behind him. The air smelled fresh, the sky washed pale. But nothing in him felt clean.